Hello everyone, welcome or welcome back to a new video. Thank you so much for being here. Today I will do another book recommendations video, and this is geared towards beginners when it comes to fantasy. So these would be my recommendations for someone that is starting to read fantasy. I have a bit of everything. I have standalones, I have series, I have longer books, I have shorter books, so on and so forth. A couple of things before we start. I am filming this in front of my window, so the light might change. I am sorry for that in advance if it happens. Also, I have tried to group these books in 4 categories. So we have cozy fantasy, we have high or epic fantasy, gothic and horror, and short stories or novellas. These are the main 4 categories. So if you're looking for a specific thing, you can just skip to that category itself, and I will leave the timestamps in the description down below. And the last thing that I want to mention is that I have came up with this list myself from the books that I have previously read and that I would consider as being good fantasy starters. But I wanted to have a fun twist in this video, so instead of me telling you why I like these books, we're gonna ask ChatGPT what these books are about and what type of reader would be best suited for them. So with that in mind, let's begin with our first category, which is cozy fantasy. My first recommendation would be The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. So let's go ask ChatGPT what they think about The House in the Cerulean Sea. Okay, so The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune is a heartwarming fantasy novel that explores themes of acceptance, belonging, and love. The story follows Linus Baker, a Bidable government worker who is assigned to a mysterious orphanage on a remote island. The orphanage is home to a group of magical children, including a sprite, a gnome, a wyvern, and a girl who is the Antichrist. Okay, first thing. The Antichrist is not a girl, is a boy. And then for the other ones, the sprite, yes, her name is Zoe. And then we have a gnome. I think her name is Talia. She's pretty funny throughout the book. We have a wyvern. Do we have a wyvern? I think we have a wyvern. Yeah, okay, so there are some things that it gets a bit wrong. Let's continue with what it says. So Linus is tasked with investigating the situation to ensure the children are being properly cared for, but he soon discovers that they are not the dangerous threats he's being led to believe. As Linus spends more time with the children and their enigmatic caretaker, Arthur Parnassus, he begins to question the rigid system he spent his life upholding. The novel delves into Linus's emotional growth and challenges him to re-examine the preconceived notions about what it means to be good or bad. It's a story about finding family in unexpected places, challenging societal norms, and embracing what makes each person, or in this case, each magical child, unique. It is a gentle, fairy tale like atmosphere, but carries a powerful message about love, empathy, and acceptance. I would agree with that. It has very strong found family vibes. We are following this group of characters that are coming together and they are, putting aside their differences to look at the bigger picture and to address the underlying issue that exists in their society. It is very on the nose. Like, there's no way that you could read this book and not understand what the author is trying to say. It is funny, it is cozy, it is heartwarming, and I would highly recommend The House in the Cerulean Sea. It is part of a somewhat duology or series. The second one just recently came out, I think last year. And that one is called Somewhere Beyond the Sea, which I have also read and would recommend. You don't necessarily have to read it, but it's very just heartwarming and fun, and Yeah, this is The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. To keep this theme of found family, my next recommendation is The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Mandana, which is a mouthful of a title. Oh my god, I can't spell witch apparently. So, The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Mandana is a heartwarming and enchanting fantasy novel that blends magical elements with a contemporary setting. It follows the story of Micah Moon. Is it Micah or Micah? Unclear. It follows the story of Mika Moon, a young witch who has spent most of her life isolated from other witches. The reason for her isolation: witches are forbidden to form close connections with others due to the potential danger of their magic becoming uncontrollable if they do. I would say that's mostly correct. Micah, however, has learned to hide her powers and live a quiet, secretive life, moving from place to place and avoid drawing attention to herself. But everything changes when she is invited to a remote estate in northern England to tutor three young witches who are struggling to control their powers. This invitation comes from the Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches, a group of witches who live outside the traditional laws and who seek to provide a safe haven for witches like Mika, whatever. I don't think that's actually correct because yes, these three witches, these three children that have to learn how to control their powers are separated from the main society of witches, but they're not part of this very secret society of regular witches that ChatGPT is alluding to. Micah actually creates the very secret society of regular witches, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, I don't think that's correct, but I also don't remember very well what's up with that in the book. So, take it with a grain of salt. As Mika becomes involved with the society and the children she's meant to teach, she learns about trust, community, and the power of connection. The novel delves into themes of belonging, found family, and the idea of breaking away from rigid societal norms to find your own path. It's a cozy, magical read with a strong focus on personal growth, acceptance, and the importance of relationships, all wrapped in a charming, magical world. Yeah, that's pretty much the gist of things with the Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches. Next up on the list, and this I have an actual physical copy of, and this is the series that I am currently reading as of the filming of this video. It is none other than Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett. Let's go ask ChatGPT what Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies is all about. Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett is a whimsical fantasy novel that follows the story of Emily Wilde, a brilliant and curious academic who specializes in studying fairies. She is an expert in her field but has a rather cold and pragmatic approach to the magical world of fairies. Emily embarks on a journey to explore and document the mysteries of fairies, specifically in a land known for its magical creatures and mystical happenings. The story begins when Emily travels to a remote and enchanted location to investigate the fairy realm. Along the way, she encounters danger, magic, and a particularly stubborn and mysterious fairy prince. Is this a spoiler? It's kind of a spoiler now that I think about it, but let's continue. As the plot unfolds, Emily must navigate tricky alliances and learn to trust her instincts and the magic around her, while also confronting her own personal growth. While also confronting her own personal growth? Is that correct in English? Confronting your personal growth? Unclear. The book is filled with humor, adventure, and romance and offers a delightful mix of academic curiosity, magical creatures, and enchanted realms. It has been compared to other whimsical fantasy novels like The House in the Cerulean Sea and The Priory of the Orange Tree, with its lush world building and engaging characters. Would you like more about the plot or the characters? No, no, thank you. No, thank you. Our main character, Emily Wilde, is described as being curmudgeonly. I think it's the best way to describe her, and I would 100% agree with that. And her personality is presented in full juxtaposition with the other somewhat main character, Wendell Bumblebee or Bumblebee. Apparently, I don't know how to pronounce the name of these characters, but I would say, arguably, is it fantasy if you can pronounce the names of the characters? I don't think so. Next on my list, I also have a physical copy of this, is Tress of the Emerald Sea by Brendan Sanderson. Brendan Sanderson is arguably one of the bestsellers when it comes to fantasy. He's known for his very simple way of writing, but in the same time, he builds his characters so well that it just makes you excited for their growth. And the way that he creates his magic systems, they are usually very easy to understand. Like, he explains everything so well. You have very clear rules. The characters are never breaking those rules, but they try to come up with ideas on how to achieve what they want to achieve, but also while being in the bounds of those rules. It's very interesting. I am very excited to continue my Sanderson journey this year. Let's see what ChatGPT has to say about Tress. Okay, so I'm quite confused by this because they say that this is by R.F. Kuang, known for the Poppy War series. R.F. Kuang is known for her Poppy War series, but Tress of the Emerald Sea is not written by R.F. Kuang. And I think they are giving me a synopsis of the Poppy War. That's very interesting. Okay, let's try again. Okay. Okay. Tress of the Emerald Sea is a fantasy novel by Brandon Sanderson, part of his Cosmere universe, but a standalone story in its own right. That is correct. You can read Tress of the Emerald Sea as a standalone. You don't have to have prior Cosmere knowledge. But if you do, you have very fun Easter eggs in this book. So you don't have to worry about that too much. It's just something that the fans of Brandon Sanderson and of fantasy get really hyped about when we get these Easter eggs in his works. It's a charming, adventure filled tale set in a unique world with mushrooms grow. No, sorry, I read that wrong. It's a charming, adventure filled tale set in a unique world where mushrooms grow on trees and ships sail on a sea of emerald green liquid. Um, okay, so when it comes to the magic system, that's not actually entirely correct. So the sea on this world of Tress, it's not actually containing any liquid, but it has spores. And Brandon Sanderson actually explains it very well in one of his YouTube videos. But basically, there's this whole process of liquidization, I believe it's called, in which sand or these particles of sand can move like water in specific conditions. So this is how the magic system or like the world building is set in this book. You have all of these seeds that are not actually containing water, but spores that move like water, if that makes sense. In the book, it's explained better than that, I swear. The story follows Tress, a young woman who lives on a small isolated island. Her life takes a dramatic turn when her love interest, Cat, is kidnapped by a mysterious pirate crew. I don't think the name of her love interest is Cat, though. Yeah, the name of the other character is Charlie, not Cat. So I was doubting myself for a minute there. Okay. Her life takes a dramatic turn when her love interest, Charlie, is kidnapped by a mysterious pirate crew. In a bid to rescue him, Tress embarks on an adventure across the strange and dangerous world, facing various challenges, magical forces, and powerful creatures. The novel is a mix of high adventure, humor, and whimsical world building, typical of Sanderson's writing style. I have a slight correction to that. I don't think Sanderson's style is necessarily whimsical in most of his works. In this specific book, it is, but when you're reading any other Brandon Sanderson novels, his writing style is very simplistic and very easy to understand. It's not usually this flowery as it is in Tress of the Emerald Sea. So, something to consider. It combines magical systems, intriguing characters, and a strong sense of hope and personal growth. Okay, but don't all other fantasy books do that? But let's continue. The story also has elements of romantic tension and self discovery as Stress transforms from a sheltered young woman into someone capable of great feats. Yeah, that is mostly correct. Tress has this very, very well developed character arc by the end of the book, and she goes from someone that is very comfortable in her own way to someone that is thirsting for adventure in the end of the story. In terms of themes, the novel explores courage, loyalty, and overcoming adversity. Like many of Sanderson's works, it delves into magic as a system that's intricate and central to the world itself. The cosmic connections are there for those familiar with his larger universe, but his book can easily be enjoyed without needing deep knowledge of his other works. Yeah, I would agree with that. Dress of the Emerald Sea is a fun and imaginative fantasy with a touch of humor, ideal for readers looking for an engaging, light-hearted adventure. What this presentation from ChatGPT doesn't tell us, we have a talking rat. Our main character is obsessed with cups. She's collecting cups, and I think, if I remember correctly, that, yes, we have some of her cups illustrated on the, oh, actually, there's another one here. And then I think we also have a rat coming out of one of the cups right here. Okay? So keep that in mind, cups and talking rats in this book. Also, something else that I wanted to point out with this book is that this is somewhat a retelling of The Princess Bride. So if you watched The Princess Bride, I think you would really enjoy Dress of the Emerald Sea. Next up, another physical copy, and this one is part of a duology. This is Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. Divine Rivals is a fantasy romance novel by Rebecca Ross. This is marketed as being romantasy, and I would agree with that, but more than romantasy in like its general term, I would say that this is a historical fiction with magical realism mostly. So if you tend to like historical works, I think you would really enjoy this one in the way that it's written and how the world is explored by these characters. It follows two main characters, Iris and Roman, who are rivals but also connected by a mysterious and magical bond. Set in a world where gods and mortals interact, the story explores themes of love, loss, and power. Iris, a young woman who is struggling with the loss of her brother, discovers a letter from him that hints at a divine war. As she gets caught up in this conflict, she also becomes entangled in a complex relationship with Roman, a soldier who is part of the same war and a rival. Um, okay, let's keep going and let's let's see what else it tells us. The novel blends romance, intrigue, and magic as Iris and Roman's rivalry deepens but also turns into a reluctant connection that could change the fate of both the mortal and the divine realms. It's a tale about destiny, healing, and the choices we make when facing overwhelming odds. Couple of things. They are said to be rivals, but they don't actually hate each other. And that is very easily resolved once they start communicating. So I wouldn't necessarily read this one if you want like a rivals to lovers kind of thing because they get on a common ground pretty early on in the book, from what I remember. We have a very interesting magic system, and even if it's not very complex, I think it gets the job done and it puts a focus on the characters themselves because these two characters have magical typewriters. And Iris writes a letter, but she doesn't know who she's writing to. But Roman, he knows that Iris is the one writing these letters. So we have a very interesting element, at least in the first half of the book, where Iris doesn't really know who she's talking to, and Roman grows more and more infatuated with Iris. They are both working as journalists at this publication in their city, in their town. There is a war happening, and more people are getting enthralled into this war. We have gods, but their involvement is not that clearly explained in the first book. You would have to read the other one, which is Ruthless Vows. That's the last book in this duology. I quite like the character work and how their relationship is explored. We obviously have a magical typewriter on the actual hardcover of this book, which I think is pretty neat. And this one says, Dear Iris, and then the other one, the sequel, says Dear Roman, for reasons that I can't get into right now because they would be a spoiler. But yeah, Divine Rivals was very popular a couple of years ago, I want to say. But I would still highly recommend this, mostly if you enjoy reading romance books, like contemporary romance books or historical fiction with this element of romance. I think you would really, really enjoy Divine Rivals. Next on my list is Half a Soul by Olivia Oddwater. This is again mostly historical fiction with fantasy elements. This is so hard because I want to tell you what the books are about, but we have to ask ChatGPT, so let's do that. Let's try without the name of the author and see what it comes up with. Half a Soul by Olivia Oddwater is a fantasy novel set in a Regency era world where magic is real. The story follows a young woman named Dora, or Theodora by her full name, who has been left with only half of her soul after a traumatic event. Because of this, Dora is disconnected from her emotions and struggles with a sense of inner emptiness. Despite this, she tries to live a normal life. Her life takes a turn when she becomes entangled with a powerful and mysterious Fey Lord, Lord Sorcier, who has his own burdens and secrets. The novel blends elements of romance, magical intrigue, and self discovery as Dora and Lord Sorcier navigate the complexities of their feelings, their magical world, and the mysteries surrounding the loss of Dora's soul. The story is known for its whimsical and light-hearted tone, despite the darker themes, and it has a strong focus on character development and relationships. It is a charming blend of Regency romance and magical fantasy with a unique twist. This book is also part of a series, but it's mostly an interconnected standalone situation, if you know what I mean. Like, the books are set in the same universe, but they don't necessarily follow the same characters. We might have cameos from characters that we met before, but they are their own unique stories. So you don't have to read all of them in order, or even to read all of them to conclude the story that begins in Half a Soul. This is a standalone novel. I really, really liked the Regency elements of the story, the character work, and the humor that is infused into this book is just amazing. It just feels like it hugs you when you read it. It is so, I hate to keep saying cozy, but it is so cozy and just heartwarming. You feel a specific type of way when you read it, and I highly enjoy that. Also, if you tend to like these Regency elements, I think you would really, really like Half a Soul by Olivia Atwater. Let's move on to the next category, which is high or epic fantasy. And the first recommendation in this category obviously couldn't be none other than Six of Crows by Lee Bardugo. I know this book is recommended a lot, but honestly, it gets recommended a lot for a reason, and I couldn't not include it in this video. So let's see what the internet has to say about Six of Crows. Ooh, okay, so they give us the characters as well. Fun. Six of Crows is a young adult fantasy novel written by Lee Bardugo. It's set in the same world as her Grisha trilogy, known as the Grishaverse, but features a new set of characters and a darker, more heist driven plot. I will also say that this is a very character driven story. Yes, you are following them as they are trying to perform this heist, but it's not about the heist, it's about the characters and about the relationships between them. So that's why I think this is so near and dear to the heart of a lot of people. It's because we are following these characters through very tough times, and it just stuck with a lot of us that read this book. The only gripe, let's say, that I have with Six of Crows and the continuation, which is Crooked Kingdom, because this is also part of a duology, is that the characters are supposed to be like 16 or 17, and to me that's just not believable. Like, at least make them 21, 22. The story follows a group of six outcasts and criminals, each with their own unique skills and troubled pasts, as they're hired to pull off an impossible heist, breaking into an impenetrable fortress to retrieve a valuable and dangerous substance called Jurda Parem. The heist could change the fate of their world, but success is far from guaranteed. The main characters include Kazbreker, a cunning and ruthless leader with a knack for strategy, Inej Kafka, stealthy acrobat and spy known as the Riot, Jesper Fahey, a sharpshooter with a gambling problem, Nina Zenik, a Grisha who's a magic user who can control the human body, specifically the heart, Matthias Helvar, a former soldier with a strong sense of honor and a grudge against Nina, Wayland van Eck, a demolitions expert with a talent for building and disarming explosives. The book combines elements of fantasy, action, adventure, and character driven drama exploring themes of loyalty, betrayal, and redemption. It's fast paced, filled with twists and turns, and offers a complex, morally gray world where not all is what it seems. And it says also that this is the first book in the duology, and it is followed by Crooked Kingdom. You can read this series as a standalone. You don't have to have previous knowledge of the Grisha or of the Grishaverse. But I will say though that the magic system is a bit better explained in the Grisha trilogy, which starts with Shadow and Bone. I think they actually renamed the whole trilogy as Shadow and Bone in the last years. So in the beginning, it gets you a bit to get caught up with the whole magic system and stuff like that in Six of Crows. But after you get it and after it's explained to you a bit more, it starts to make sense. So don't be too concerned with the fact that you don't really understand what's happening with the magic system in the first like 150 to 200 pages from this book. Something that I would consider to be very similar to the premise of Six of Crows but done in a slightly different way We have a newer release that I think was published last year in 2024, and that is Five Broken Blades by Mike Corland. And it got it wrong, so let's try again. Ah, okay. So now it got it right. Five Broken Blades by Mike Corland is a dark fantasy novel that centers on themes of revenge, honor, and personal redemption. The story follows Kaiten, a skilled swordsman who is caught in a world of violence and intrigue. The central plot revolves around Kaiten's quest for revenge after a betrayal, leading him down a dangerous path filled with complex relationships, political tension, and brutal conflict. Is the name of the main character Kaiten? No, it's not. Famously, I forget the name of the characters, but I don't think any of the characters are named Kaiten, so I'm quite confused with this. Let's continue and let's see what else it says. So, set in a world where swords and combat play a significant role in the lives of its characters, the novel explores the consequences of past actions and the toll that seeking revenge can take on one's soul. The Five Broken Blades metaphor represents both literal and symbolic ideas, such as broken promises, shattered identities, and the loss of personal integrity. Corland's writing delves into themes like cost of loyalty, self sacrifice, and the murky lines between good and evil, creating a world where honor is often compromised in pursuit of personal goal. If you're drawn to fantasy stories that combine action with emotional depth and moral complexity, Five Broken Blades offers an intriguing read. Okay, so I think this is the first case in which ChatGPT didn't really know what's up with this book. So it is true that we are following these themes of betrayal, and the characters are very morally gray. We don't have like good or evil characters. We have this like murky line between the two, and they're teaming up for a heist because each of them have their own personal motives. But there's a plot twist at the end so big that I was so excited to get to the next book. This is an ongoing series, it is not finished yet. The sequel to this, that is called Four Ruined Realms, just got released a couple of months ago. I think it was in February, if I'm not mistaken. I have not yet read that one, but I am very excited to get to it. This has very short chapters, so if you have like a short attention span, I think this can really work for you. Five Broken Blades by Mike Warland. My next recommendation is a bit of a throwback because it is Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. This was published in 2017. I want to say this is a duology, so it has two books. I have only read this one, the first one. I have not completed the duology as of the filming of this video, but I really, really liked the concept of this book. And to tell you more about the concept, let's go to ChatGPT and ask. Okay, so it says Strange the Dreamer is a fantasy novel by Laini Taylor. It follows the story of Laszlo Strange, a young orphan librarian who has always been fascinated by the mythical city of Weep, which has been shrouded in mystery for centuries. Laszlo is captivated by the story of the city, but no one knows much about it, including its name, as it was lost in history. The story picks up when Laszlo gets an opportunity to travel to Weep with a group of scholars and adventurers. Once they reach the city, Laszlo discovers its forgotten secrets, which include a world of magic, gods, and a tragic history involving an ancient war. The narrative also intertwines with that of Sarai, a mysterious girl who is one of the lost survivors of the gods and who has a powerful and dangerous ability tied to dreams. Themes in the book include the nature of dreams, the longing for belonging, the clash between gods and mortals, and the struggle to uncover the truth behind legends and lost histories. It's a rich, atmospheric fantasy with deeply developed characters and intricate world building. The novel is the first in a duology, followed by Muse of Nightmares. I believe that the books that were released in the last couple of years are not that well summarized by ChatGPT, but the blurb for this one is really good, I will say, because I have no notes. We have a dual POV between Stranger Dreamer, which is Laszlo, and the other one, which is Sarai. We have this very unique setting, and there's a specific scene in the book that I can't tell you about because it would be a spoiler, but ever since I have read this book, I kept thinking about the location and that scene in particular. If you read the book, you probably know what I'm referring to. It is a bit reminiscent of the 2001 Disney film Atlantis, The Lost Empire, mostly in its ideas, not necessarily in its setting, because that one is obviously like something underwater and they have to go underwater to um, discover what's up with the lost city of Atlantis. But this one is more so geared towards the sky, let's say, without giving any spoilers. So this is quite unique in its setting, in its characters, in its magic system even, and I would highly recommend Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. Next up, I have here Daughter of the Moon Goddess by Sulin Tan. This is another duology. The second one is Heart of the Sun Warrior, and let's go to ChatGPT and see what it says about Daughter of the Moon Goddess. Daughter of the Moon Goddess by Sulin Tan is a captivating fantasy novel inspired by Chinese mythology, particularly the legend of the moon goddess Chang'e. The story follows Xing Yin, the daughter of Chang'e, who has been hidden away from the world due to the dangers surrounding her mother's identity. After her home is attacked, Xing Yin escapes and embarks on a journey to find her mother, learning about her own magical powers and destiny along the way. I wouldn't say it's necessarily to find her mother, but it's mostly to seek her mother's freedom. The novel weaves themes of love, loyalty, and family while also exploring Xing Yin's personal growth and self discovery. It blends elements of traditional Chinese mythology with fantastical world building, making it an immersive read for fans of both mythology and epic fantasy. The story also features political intrigue, powerful gods, and epic battles, making for an exciting, action packed narrative. At its core, Daughter of the Moon Goddess is about a young woman coming into her power while navigating a world full of gods, magic, and complex relationships. I feel like that was pretty well explained. It is full of action packed scenes, it is full of self discovery. We have this very, very beautiful setting for this book. If you can see the actual cover, I think it's very well done and very reminiscent of the setting of this book. If I could describe it in one word, it would be spring. Like when I think about this book, I think about spring, not necessarily because it happens in the spring, but because of how it made me feel. We are officially halfway through the video, so let's continue with the next recommendation for this category, which is An Ember in the Ashes by Sabata here. This is a series of 4 books and it is finished, so you can just binge the whole series if you want to. It says An Ember in the Ashes is a young adult fantasy novel by Sabata here. The story takes place in a brutal Roman-inspired empire and follows 2 main characters. Laia, a young woman from a family of scholars, after her parents are murdered by the empire and her brother is taken captive, Laia becomes a spy for the rebels. She infiltrates the Empire's military academy in order to find a way to free her brother. Elias, a soldier in the Empire's elite military academy, the Black Cliff Military Academy. Despite his training, Elias is disillusioned by the cruelty of the Empire and wants to escape. However, he becomes caught up in the deadly trials to determine the next leader of the Empire. The novel explores themes of oppression, loyalty, love, and sacrifice as Laya and Elias's paths cross in a world where survival is a constant struggle. They both face difficult choices as they navigate a brutal authoritarian regime, and their destinies become intertwined in unexpected ways. The story is filled with action, intrigue, and emotional depth. I finished reading these books pretty quickly because they are so fast paced, and each of them ends on a somewhat of a cliffhanger, so you're really curious to see what will happen next. I just think they are top tier YA fantasy, and I would highly recommend An Ember in the Ashes. Another Brando Sando book. This time I'm talking about Mistborn, the Mistborn trilogy. This is a series of three books. It starts with the first one, which used to be called The Final Empire. Now it's just called Mistborn. I liked the older name better, The Final Empire. I think it's very fitting for this book. But the story continues in the second one, which is The Well of Ascension, and then the last one, which is The Hero of Ages. I read these books fairly recently in December, I want to say. I am planning on starting The Way of Kings. I'm just terrified because each of those books have more than 1,000 pages. So we'll see how that goes. Mistborn is a high fantasy book series by Brandon Sanderson. The first book in the series, Mistborn: The Final Empire, introduces a world where ash falls from the sky and mist dominates the night. The society is ruled by the immortal Rold ruler, a tyrant who has maintained control over the people for over 1,000 years. The social structure is divided into the nobility and the oppressed lower classes, known as Ska. The central character is Vin, a Ska street urchin who discovers she has powerful abilities related to a magical system called allomancy. Allomancy allows people to ingest and burn various metals to gain special powers such as enhanced strength, manipulation of emotions, and even the ability to control metals like iron and steel. Vin is taken in by a group of rebels who want to overthrow the Rold ruler's empire. They plan to use her allomantic powers to help them execute a daring plot to bring down the world ruler and free the people from his tyrannical reign. The series explores themes of power, trust, rebellion, and the nature of leadership with a complex magic system and deep character development. It also delves into the mysteries surrounding the world ruler and the history of the world itself. The Mistborn series has several books with a mix of political intrigue, action, and unexpected twist. So, what they mean to say with several books is that Mistborn Era 1, which is this one, has three books. It's a trilogy. But then we also have Mistborn Era 2, which I have not read yet. That one has four books. And from what I know, the overarching Mistborn series is not yet completed, so we will have more books in the Mistborn overarching series, overarching universe. As a start, I would highly recommend Era 1. We have such a cool magic system. It's something that I have never heard about before reading Mistborn. And the way that it works is so fascinating. You have all of these metals and all of these alloys. You have charts with how each metal works and what power it grants. It's very, very interesting. The political intrigue. Again, I was so invested in this series, and I would highly, highly recommend Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson. Next up, I have a book that I have recently read, and if you watched the previous videos here on the channel, you already probably have heard me talk about this book. It is called Blood Over Brighthaven by Emil Wang, and this is going to fall, so let's see what we can do with this. Blood Over Brighthaven is a fantasy novel by M.L. Brennan. No. It is not that. So let's see if we add the name of the author, if ChatGPT is able to tell us. So what is Blood Over Bright Haven by M.L. Wang? Wow, okay, so for this book, even if I add the name of the author, they say that it's part of the Broken Kingdoms series, which is not true because this is a standalone book. And they don't get even the name of the protagonist correct because the name of the main character is not Kuvria. And now when I try to ask it in a different way, they still don't get the name of the main character correct or even the plot of the book. So I guess for this one, it doesn't really know what I'm asking. Well, this is the perfect segue to actually tell you about this book because this was a marvel to read. It is very on the nose. It is very clear what this book is critiquing. We are following our main character, that I already forget the name of, obviously. We are following our main character, Sayona, and Sayona lives in a world in this town, okay? And they are surrounded by a barrier that keeps them safe inside of this town, inside of this city. Everything that's outside of this barrier gets attacked by the blight. And outside the barrier and outside of the city, there are multiple tribes of people that have refused to be a part of the city. So these people that are outside of the barrier are constantly getting attacked by blight. Our main character Sayona works very hard to become the very first woman high mage from this city. In the beginning of the book, in the very first chapters, she has her entrance exam into the high magistry. She passes the exam, she becomes the very first woman high mage. But when she is doing her project to research ways to extend the barrier that is surrounding the city, she discovers some very frightening truths about the source of their powers and of their magic. And once she discovers those things, she can't really go back to the way that she was because she realizes that what they do is morally wrong and she has to find a way to show everyone where their magic comes from because the ordinary people don't know this. She was never told this before, and she thinks that she's the only one that knows about the source of the power. But does the government know? Did they know and they kept doing these horrific things just for power and to be in charge and in control of the other people in the town? We are also following other character Tamil, and Tamil at the beginning of the book ran away from the blight that pretty much attacked all his family, and he and his niece managed to go to the city to be safe. So now in present day, he is working as a janitor for the High Magistry. And after Sayona becomes the very first woman High Mage, Tamil is assigned to her as her research assistant, which is obviously meant to be a mockery. The other High Mages don't really respect Sayona because she's a woman. So you get what I'm saying when I say that this book is not very subtle in its message, but I think it is so well done. And what I really enjoyed about this book is that our main character is morally gray. She does some pretty fucked up things in the beginning, but then she kind of learns how to unlearn all of the things that she was teached before and all of the things that this city is based on. So Blood Over Bright Haven by ML Wang is amazing when it comes to its messaging. As I said, it's very strong. It comes across as being very preachy. But I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing when it comes to this specific message of this book. So this is Blood Over Bright Haven by ML Wang. Moving along to our next category, which is Gothic slash horror book recommendations in this fantasy genre. And my first recommendation would actually be The Lost Tale of the Flower Bride by Roshani Chokshi. Let's take a moment to fully appreciate this cover because it is absolutely beautiful. And I don't know if you can tell, but these little birds right here, they're actually with gold foiling. And again, we have the gold foiling on the back of this book as well. So, very, very cool cover. But let me actually read to you what this book is all about. The Lost Tale of the Flower Bride by Roshani Chokshi is a dark, enchanting fantasy novel that blends elements of mystery, romance, and the supernatural. It follows the story of a young woman known as the Flower Bride and the complex relationship between her and her husband, who is a scholar obsessed with uncovering the truth about her past. The central narrative revolves around the Flower Bride, an enigmatic woman with a tragic history. She has been married to a man who is deeply in love with her but also obsessed with the secret she holds. The story begins when her husband returns to her childhood home, a mansion filled with old secrets, where he delves deeper into the past and the mysterious events surrounding her life. Themes of love, betrayal, and the power of secrets are explored as her husband uncovers dark truths that challenge his perception of reality. The novel is steeped in lush prose and features a tale that blurs the line between the real and the magical. It is a story about the consequences of keeping secrets, the dangers of obsession, and the devastating effects of love when it comes entangled with those secrets. It's a haunting exploration of the boundaries between truth and fantasy. I think ChatGPT nailed it with this description because, yes, it is a book that is very clearly blending the lines between reality and fantasy. It almost reads like literary fiction with magical realism and a very, very unreliable main character and narrator. And also, we might potentially have a sentient mention in this book. So, if that sounds interesting to you, this is The Lost Tale of the Flower Bride by Roshani Chokshi. Next book, and I think with this one, ChatGPT is gonna have a problem in actually telling us what this is about. Because the title, I think it's a pretty generic one, but this is The Invocations by Crystal Sutherland. So let's see if ChatGPT can tell us what The Invocations is about. Okay, so as I pretty much expected, it tells me what the term invocation means. So let's try with the name of the author as well. By Crystal with a K. Let's try, because it's not a poetry collection, let's try wording it a bit differently. It tells us that the name of the main character is Asha, which is not correct, and I don't know if the rest of this summary is correct. So the book explores Asha's journey as she navigates the complex worlds of magic, identity, and personal growth. Is a story of discovery, both magical and personal. Yeah, I don't think this is what the book is about. So again, let me quickly tell you what The Invocations by Crystal Sutherland is all about. So, this book follows a couple of characters. On one hand, we have Zara, who has recently lost her sister. Her sister is dead, and she is trying to find out a way to resurrect her sister. So she would need a witch to be able to do that because she doesn't have any magical powers. Other character that this book follows is Jude, and Jude has this injury on her leg that emanates sulfur and is just like really gross. She got this injury after she made a deal with a demon. And not only that, but that specific wound on her leg starts to become necrotic. So She's very scared that she might be in danger, so she as well needs a witch to be able to break that bond between her and the demon. We have two characters who have kind of the same goal of finding a witch. So we also get to meet our witch, Emmer, who is orphaned, and she is basically offering her help, her spells, to women in need. But recently, something strange seems to happen because all of Emmer's clients, all of the women that she helped, they turn out to be dead. They are quite literally haunted and killed by someone. We don't know who. So she's quite reluctant on helping these two other girls with their problem, and they team up to get to the bottom of this, to find out who is murdering all of these other women and why. If it helps you with something, the dedication of this book, it says for all the angry girls. So if this doesn't convince you to read this book, I don't know what will. This is The Invocations by Crystal Sutherland. Next up, I have here Ninth House by Lee Bardugo. Ninth House is a novel by Lee Bardugo, which is a dark, atmospheric, and gripping fantasy thriller. It is the first book in the Alex Stern series, and it was published in 2019. I will add here that this is an unfinished series. So we have the first one, which is Ninth House, and we also have the second volume in this series called Hellbent, which is out right now. But we don't have the other books yet. We don't know how long it's going to be, so this is unfinished as of the moment. Just something to consider, okay? The story follows Galaxy, Alex for short, Stern, a troubled young woman with a dark past. She is offered a second chance to life when she is recruited to Yale University as part of an exclusive secret society. The society's role is to oversee the other occult societies at Yale, ensuring that they don't engage in harmful or dangerous magic. The Ninth House, which is the focus of the novel, deals with the darker, more dangerous side of magic. Alex is thrust into a world of secret rituals, supernatural powers, and hidden agendas, while struggling to uncover the truth behind a series of mysterious deaths that may be connected to the societies. Throughout the novel, she faces challenges from both the powerful figures around her and her own personal demons. The book blends elements of mystery, horror, and fantasy, exploring themes like privilege, trauma, power, and corruption, all set against the backdrop of an elite university steeped in hidden magic. It's an intense, immersive story that mixes a high stakes thriller with supernatural intrigue. I have no notes, honestly. I think ChatGPT did a pretty good job with the summary of this book and what this is about. The only thing that I want to add to what I have read is that this book has some very gruesome scenes from time to time, and also some other themes that I would consider as being triggering to some people. So before you go into this book and into this series, just check the trigger warnings to make sure that you can actually read it and that it's for you. So this is the Ninth House book, or the Alex Stern series by Lee Bardugo. Next up on the list, we have another duology that was quite popular a couple of years ago, and that is One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig. I think this took Book Talk by storm, and this is actually a Book Talk recommendation that I can get behind of. Let's hope this will not fall. There we go. One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig is a dark fantasy novel that blends elements of magic, mystery, and romance. It follows the story of Elspeth Spindle, a woman with a mysterious magical power that allows her to communicate with the dangerous and forbidden spirit living inside her. This spirit, known as the Nightmare, has the ability to manipulate dreams and bring out both darkness and chaos. Elspeth is trying to navigate a world full of political intrigue, betrayal, and dangerous magic, all while dealing with the constant threat posed by the nightmare within her. She finds herself at the center of a power struggle, forced to confront the dark forces that are not only threatening her life, but also the stability of the kingdom. The novel explores themes of trust, power, identity, and the complexity of human nature, as Elspeth must decide whether she can control the spirit inside her or if it will ultimately consume her. It's a story full of tension, suspense, and rich world building. I also want to add that the magic system from One Dark Window and the sequel to this, which is Two Twisted Crowns, is very interesting. We have these Providence cards, they're called, and the cards themselves contain magic. So if you are in the possession of one of these cards, you touch them 3 times and you can basically wield their power. But if you overdo it and if you're using your cards or your card too much or too often, it will take a toll on your body or on your appearance. It is very gloomy and atmospheric. You have this visual of just like mist everywhere. I would highly recommend you read this one, mostly in like the fall time, but it can work in any season, obviously. So this is the Shepherd King duology, One Dark Window, and Two Twisted Crowns by Rachel Gilley. And we are finally onto our last category, which is short stories or novellas. And I will start with a novella that I want to recommend in this fantasy genre, and that is When Among Crows by Veronica Roth, which is the same author of Divergent. This is a standalone. You can read it as a standalone, but it does have an upcoming sequel that I think it's going to be published in the second half of 2025. Okay, so the description for this book is not actually correct. So let's try to word it a bit differently and see if it will get it right. And let's use some quotation marks for the name of the book as well. Let's see. So it says that as of right now, there is no book titled When Among Crows by Veronica Roth. If ChatGPT doesn't want to acknowledge this book, let me quickly tell you what this book is about. So this is an urban fantasy. It is very short. I think it's under 200 pages. Yeah, it has like 160 something pages. It is based on Polish folklore. You have Baba Yaga and you have all of these other mythical creatures from Polish folk tales and folklore. It is very grimy and grungy. We are following a character who has to find this magical flower, if I'm remembering correctly. We are following our main character throughout the underground of Chicago. It's full of fighting dens and fighting clubs and just like underground sketchy things that are happening. And I'm very curious to see if someone that's newer to fantasy would be able to get the plot twist of this book, because after I read a bit from this one, I was able to clearly tell that this is what's happening and this is going to be the outcome of the book. And I was correct in thinking that, but I'm very curious to see if someone that's newer to fantasy would be able to spot all of the clues, because this is, again, very simplistic and very to the point. I'm excited for its sequel. I'm excited to see where that will go. But until then, I would highly recommend When Among Crows. If you have like a couple of hours to read and you want to dabble into fantasy, I think this could work really well. And then last but certainly not least, this is an anthology. So it's a short story collection by one of my favorite authors, and that is Olivia Blake's Januaries. So let's see what ChatGPT has to say about this book. Because this is a newer release, I don't think ChatGPT really knows what this book is about. And I think it's trying to come up with its own ideas of what this book is about. So that might be something to consider if you're looking specific things on ChatGPT. But yeah, as I said before, this book it's an anthology, and I think it just highlights Olivia Blake's writing style so well. It is so interesting to me how Olivia Blake was able to put this fantasy spin on all of the stories, but while also keeping them very simple at their core. We are following themes of grief and love and betrayal. With this book, Olivia Blake put more of a lyrical spin on her writing, and it feels a bit more flowery than usual. I quite like the worlds that Olivia Blake created in this book, and obviously each story follows like a certain different narrative from all of the other stories, but all of them have like at least something in common. They're categorized into seasons. So you would have a couple of stories for spring, for summer, and stuff like that. You can see that in the um, table of contents here. You will see that I have highlighted a specific story, which is To Make a Man, because that one is my favorite from this book. If you want to try fantasy, but you're not really sure if you want to read a full length book, I think this anthology collection can really work for you because the stories themselves are obviously pretty short, but they're written in a way where these characters can feel so real. And Olivia Blake put obviously a fantasy spin on the majority of these stories, but at their core, they read as literary fiction. That's a bit absurd because that's always how Olivia likes to write her stories, and it is something that I always enjoy. I feel like I filmed for hours, and now I have to put all of these books back on my bookshelves, but that's a problem for future me, or I guess past me by the time you're watching this video. One last thing before I go, because I kept going to ChatGPT for this video, let's actually ask ChatGPT what should I name this video. What should I name my YouTube video? And now it's gonna ask me what the video is about. Okay, so the first one is fantasy book recommendations for beginners. ChatGPT tell us what they're about. Beginner's guide to fantasy books. Let ChatGPT do the explaining. Top fantasy books for beginners with a ChatGPT twist. I really like the third one. Fantasy book recommendations for newbies explained by ChatGPT. Not really. It goes very clickbaity. I feel like with fantasy books, you have to read ChatGPT explains for beginners. We'll see. We'll workshop the ideas and we'll see what title this video should have. That being said, thank you all so much for watching. Please let me know in the comments down below if you have read any of these books, if you agree with my choices, or if you have any other book recommendations for beginners when it comes to fantasy. Please add them all in the comments down below. Also, please let me know if you want to see other book recommendations videos from me with other subgenres. I would like to know that. And until next time, thanks for watching. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you hopefully in a new video soon here on the channel. Bye guys.